1% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't live the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get punked, and some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in a Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the Hustlers quick to roll, the gangsters don't move, whatever click you choose.
Say what's cracking YouTube, it's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a pro violation. Yard down. Let's get right into this video, man. So I'm gonna be 100% with y'all, man. I don't really know much about this situation here, right? An individual, I believe his name is C-Rod. He asked me if I would give my opinion on this situation, and primarily what he was asking is, what will life be like for the singer David, who has been charged with unaliving this 14-year-old, right? Like I told you guys, I didn't know much about this whatsoever. I had seen, in scrolling through YouTube, I had seen, periodically certain little stories surrounding it, but I didn't never get much into it. I just knew that, I had never heard of the singer David. And then I had known that, the body of this 14-year-old was found in his Tesla trunk. And I believe it happened like several months ago, but he was originally never charged with it. Then upon, doing further looking into it today, I seen where, she lost her life April 23rd. And then at some point in time recently, he has been arrested. And so the stuff that I've seen is extremely gruesome. But for individuals out there who also may not be familiar, I'm gonna play a little bit of this before I get into what his life may be like in the county jail in Los Angeles. And keep in mind, I'm not from Los Angeles, and so I reached out to a few individuals who gave me a little bit more information. So anyway, let's get into this real quick, this video.
Today, I am announcing the charges against David Anthony Burke, the musician known as David, spelled D4VD, in connection with the brutal and horrific murder of Celeste, a 14-year-old at that time. These charges include the most serious charges that a DA's office can bring. That is first-degree murder with special circumstances. The special circumstances being lying in wait, committing this crime for financial gain, or murdering a witness in an investigation. These special circumstances carry with it, along with the first-degree murder charge, a maximum sentence of life without the possibility of parole or the death penalty. The determination on whether or not the district attorney's office will seek the death penalty will be made at a later time.
Okay, so there you have it, man. I believe this was yesterday, possibly. I've also seen reports today stating that they found child P on his phone. How do we want to say it? X-rated pictures of a child under the age, I believe, of 14, right? And so yeah, he's definitely been charged with her murder. As I mentioned earlier, her body was found, I believe, in the front trunk of his Tesla, and it took some time to get him charged with this stuff, right? You had a lot of individuals wondering, like, dang, okay, what's wrong? And even though I didn't hear much about the story or pay much attention to it earlier, even I myself said, well, dang, what's the deal? If they found her body in his car, what's the deal? But I guess the car was found, like, I think it was in an impound lot or something like that. So maybe due to where it was found at, That may have been something that slowed up the process, right? So yeah, he's charged with first degree murder, and you heard him say he's charged with special circumstances. Anytime in California there are special circumstances that make you eligible, that makes you eligible for the death penalty. He said, now, and so basically, and then he was saying basically the determination if he will actually be charged with the death penalty will be determined later by the district attorney. So when you are charged with a case like with special circumstances, there are really only two options. You can have life without parole, or you can have the death penalty, right? I don't know how long it's been, maybe the last 2-3 years. California has put a moratorium on the death penalty, meaning that they have halted all executions on death row. Actually, they disbanded death row. Currently, there is no death row. Death row in California was in a prison known as San Quentin, and it was in a certain wing. They had all these individuals. Now they have shut that wing down and actually sent these dudes who were at one point in time scheduled for death out to different prisons and stuff. So now they're in normal, regular prisons, right? And so I still think, despite the moratorium, I still think that the DA, and this is just my personal opinion, of course, but I still believe that the DA will choose to have this individual receive the death penalty in the event he's found guilty. Now, in the event he is found guilty and they give him the death penalty, he then will be sent to one of these other prisons, just like all these other individuals, but he'll still have the death penalty on his penitentiary record, I guess. And in the event they at some point in time resume the process, then he will be eligible for the death penalty. Let me break down real quick, man, the special circumstances, right? You heard him speak on it briefly, right? So he's charged with murder, and then there are special circumstances pertaining to that murder. So one of the charges is lying in wait. So it said that he called and had her come to his house with the intention to unalive her. So he was waiting, to do great bodily harm in the form of taking her life. So that's where you get the lying in wait charge. Then they charge him. They say the murder was also for financial gain. And so this individual, he is an artist. And I looked into his situation briefly, and I couldn't see how many records he had sold, but I did see he had a couple of multi-platinum songs, right? So, so the financial gain charge comes with he murdered her, he unalived her in hopes of remaining, keeping his financial status, not letting the fact that he had, it's alleged that he was already charged with in an inappropriate relationship with a minor get out there, him get convicted of it in court, and have it ruin his financial status. So that's where they're alleging that this murder was done for financial gain, basically to keep him successful, lucrative, keep him his income coming in, so on and so forth, right? And now, the third special circumstance that he has in relation to this case is he unalived a witness, being she was a witness to his charges of lewd and lascivious acts on someone under the age of 14. So this is what is being alleged by the district attorney, and these are the charges that he is currently facing right now. Let's move forward. And the individual asked me, what will his life be like while he is fighting these charges in the Los Angeles County Jail? Like I told you guys earlier, I'm not from Los Angeles. I never have been to Los Angeles County Jail, but I do have several individuals that I can reach out to and get a idea of what he may potentially face, right? And so I reached out to several, and this is what I was told, right? Chances are very high that he will be placed in a jail known as the Twin Towers. Now, the Twin Towers, from what I understand, is a modern type jail, right? And so he will be placed in protective custody. He will be placed in a cell by himself, right? Now, they have, like this protective custody. They also had, I've heard a lot about area in Los Angeles County Jail that was called Millionaires Row, where they had a lot of famous individuals, high celebrity individuals was up there. If your case had a lot of publicity in the news, so on and so forth. I had interviewed a dude at one point in time. He said he was up there with the Menendez brothers. He was also up there with OJ, right? So he may be placed up there. Like I said, I don't know. Now, to my understanding, he will be placed in a cell by himself, right? And of course, due to the publicity of his case and due to the nature of his case, he definitely will be placed in protective custody, right? So I asked these individuals, and one of them was my former cellie from Ironwood. I did a story about him too. Anyway, he told me though that this dude, because I asked him, hey, well, will the convicts up in there have action at physically getting to this dude, right? And he said it's possible, right? It's possible because despite what people may say, right, you have individuals of all races, blacks included, who despise an individual with charges like this. Everybody has, specifically blacks. We have mothers, we have daughters, we have sisters, cousins, aunts, so on and so forth. And so when an individual does something like this horrific to a woman and a child at that, you enrage the jailhouse population, right? Now, in some instances, if a person had done something to a female, some instances, depending on what the nature of his charges were, he may be given, okay, well, we'll wait and see, how things turn out for this individual, at least among the blacks. In some instances, right, depending on the nature of the charges, depending on what's being said, or whatever. This is not one of those cases, right? Because you're going to have individuals saying, well, first and foremost, what was you even doing messing with a 14-year-old girl? So that charge alone, man, if this dude was, let's just say, for example, put into general population, he would be beat up, he would be attacked, stabbed, more than likely killed, right? But due to the fact that he's being held away from other people, that's not necessarily going to happen automatically and right away. But my partner did tell me, he said, but there are always chances he still can be assaulted, because I asked, will he go to court by himself? Will he be placed in the holding tank with other people? And he said, well, he could possibly wind up in a tank with somebody else, quote unquote, by mistake. The same way the individual who was charged with the unaliving of Nipsey Hussle was eventually assaulted and beat up in a tank. Sometimes, things happen. So that definitely is an option, right? Also, my homie told me that he possibly could be sent to medical. If he's sent to medical unescorted, and run across the wrong individual, then he definitely could be severely assaulted, beat, and so on and so forth, right? Because let's keep in mind that the guards working up in here, they definitely don't like individuals with these type of charges right now. When you're in prison, the guards don't like stuff like that either, right? But in prison, the guards are more responsible for individuals' well-being, because you have more methods of more appeal methods. You can file better grievances in prison. But when things like this happen in most county jails, it's really just a shuffle on from one county jail to the next. Especially in Riverside County, they would beat you up, dog you. Then you would be in the Riverside County jail system. But there are several jails in several different cities that make up the Riverside County jail system. So originally they may have you in Riverside County. You become a problem, they beat you up or whatever. They trying to keep you away from your loved ones and your people. they may send you down to Blythe. You know, Blythe is probably about 2.5 hours away from Riverside. You know, then again they could send you to it's a county jail now in Bannon. You know, it's a county jail out there in Temecula. Temecula is maybe about an hour and a half away from Riverside. You know, somewhere around there. So they play these little games and tricks to prevent you from getting word to your people. You know, prevent you from having your people able to see you and stuff like that. But in prison, it's much harder to move an individual around like that. So, but in the county jail, you know, everything is all, you know, all things like this are possible due to the lack of responsibility, or the lack of accountability that the guards can be held to, right? So this is something that's very, you know, possible, him being assaulted at some point in time. I'm assuming whoever his next door neighbors is, this dude will be, you know, no one will be communicating with this dude, or if they are, you know, they're disrespecting him, calling this dude a POS, so on and so forth, you know, because also one thing about, you know, the county jails, there is very less structure in terms of not communicating with individuals like this, like you may find in prison, unless, you know, you're assaulting or harming one of these individuals. You know, so some of those dudes who possibly could be his neighbor may have never went to prison, may have not had the prison, let me say, I don't want to say etiquette, the prison type of training, you know, that you don't acknowledge these individuals, you know, only if you're assaulting him and doing something to him and, you know, trying to harm him. So he may have you know, he may have a next door neighbor who is, you know, very upset at what he's being charged with and will lash out, you know, at him every time he sees him, so on and so forth, as opposed to, like I said, in prison. If you happen to see an individual like this, both you guys are in the shoe, most times people are not even going to acknowledge this dude if they can't physically get to him, right? So he definitely is going to have an extremely rough time in the county jail, right? It's not going to be an easy walk for him. Of course, you know, he at some point in time had at least attained a certain amount of wealth, so he's used to a certain type of living. So it's definitely going to be different. Just being confined, being locked up, you know, on top of the things that he's charged with, right? And it sounds like, as far as the district attorneys in them are concerned, they have a very, very, very strong case. You know, like I mentioned earlier, it's alleged that they found, you know, some lewd pictures of young minors on his phone and stuff. And I think, I don't know if I played it, but he mentioned that the feds may even step in due to those pictures. So yeah, this dude is definitely facing a whole lot of trouble, and from the sounds of things is he'll probably never be free again, and he will definitely have a hard time while he's there in the Los Angeles County Jail. But anyway, rest in peace to that young lady. This is a very sad situation. Like I said, I hadn't delved deep into the situation, so doing some research today upon hearing some of these allegations against this individual, it's definitely a horrific thing, man. So rest in peace to her. My condolences to her family. Anyway, you already know what this is. It's your boy 16 to Life. Resume normal program.